The Honorable the Speaker.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Honorable members of this August House, members of the staff, good morning and welcome to us. Are there any motions without notifications of council you want to open? Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House knows the economic freedom fighters in Limpopo condemns in the strongest possible terms the alleged killing of Patricia Morin, aged 45, by her husband, aged 71, at their family home at recording the diary on Tuesday, 16th August 2022. Her untimely death sends shockwaves across the province and takes us back in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, especially at a time when we are already women's lives. The EFF knows with utter dismay that the victim was found with multiple stab wounds with a sharp object believed to be a weapon used in the murder found on the scene. The swift arrest of the perpetrator by the police is commendable, and we call on the state not to grant the suspect bail until he is met with the harsher sentences. In addition, we urge men to desist from their wickedness and protect women against abuse and violence. Equally, the police and the FEC for safety and community license must roll up their sleeves and unleash a vigorous program aimed at addressing the prevalence of LGBT in the province. I so move. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I say on advice to second the motion to move as Honorable Manga. Thank you. Any motion without notice? Honorable Speaker, I, Makwese Chairperson, I rise on behalf of the ANC in this August House to congratulate an 11-year-old Kadalodwara from Ramashashane outside Polokwane for representing South Africa in the Film Junior Motocross World Cup in the MX65 class, which took place in Finland this past weekend. According to his profile, Kadalo Jr., 11 years, started racing when he was only 8 years old, and today with only 3 years racing experience, he represents the country on an international stage. Honorable Speaker, we are encouraged by this news, and we know that this and many other achievements of having black children taking part in what was previously seen as wide-based sporting activities are the result of a level playing field because of an ANC rule. We hope that Kadalo's achievements will open a wealth of opportunities to many other young children who only see some sporting codes as exclusively reserved for a certain race and not for themselves. I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to second the motion as read by Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Any motion without notice? Honorable Chief.
Thank you very much. Our members are busy with the final determination, which are expressed in the final determination. We wish them well and we are hopeful that this final in the system and let us can improve the purpose position in the country. Honorable Speaker, let's balance the leaders of society but also play our part to ensure that our children are able to study an environment that is sustainable for them. We cannot have talents and equity of regular community of and they are busy getting the week hours while our members are giving you their information. We make a humble request for our parents also to play their part to ensure that they assist this level by encouraging them to study and not overlook them the week household children. We are also making an appeal to the department to make concerted efforts and instituting intervention mechanisms to assist our work before the schools for the basic development of the community. Because we cannot continue to be embarrassed by the safety of people without any concern. We wish them all of the best for this time of the music and remain hopeful that they will give us all the benefit of this. I say we will have a few.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwame. Honorable Martin. Mama Speaker, mina sifani Violet Martin, mina la kuseketela kusoka katika kuona vile wajibu wakatanga kule, lava ya kufanya katika ndocha chakala ile, ndio kushweke uchaliseki, chimoko nkulu sabanda kumaka, kama mkenya ndiko. Any motions without notice? Are there any notices of motions in terms of House Bill 146? None. Any statement by members in terms of Bill 200? Honorable Shaw.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Greetings to all the members of the Executive Council who are here, to the members in this August House. Honorable Speaker, the ESF is dismayed by the revelation of nepotism and corruption in filling posts in the Limpopo Legislature. We have long raised the concern in this House about the action of some of the red elements within the senior management of this institution. This report of nepotism and corruption does not come as a shock to us because the ESF is acknowledged in its view that the there is a deep-sided corruption in the legislature which has been ignored over years. The Limpopo Legislature has been turned into a family institution and a dumping ground for ANC cadres who fail elsewhere, compromising service delivery. It is not ANC cadre. If it is not ANC cadre, it's a family member who are appointed to paid positions in the legislature. This revelation confirms our long-held view that the legislature is corrupt to the core. This shameful and nonsensical gatekeeping must come to an end now. When posts are advertised, there are people already earmarked to occupy them. Advertisement is just a formality, an exercise to put a hook on the face of the public. Allegation of nepotism is a favor of family members who do not meet the requirement of advertised posts in the IT section as a serious, and they must be investigated with immediate effect. No stone must be left unturned as we get to the bottom of this matter. There is an attempt by some in the senior management to privatize, personalize, and capture the legislature for their own selfish gain. These are officials who think that they own the legislature, and they hold misguided view that they are untouchable because of their proximity to the ANC leaders. We call upon the Speaker to investigate this matter and table the report in this House. We will also raise this matter in the Portfolio Committee tasked with this responsibility to deal with such matters. We will further look into the possibility of how such matter can be raised with structures outside the legislative processes, and hope that this time this matter can be given the attention it deserves. I thank you.
Any member statements? Honorable Manager. We have learned to display the poor and effective security measures at Khoame Wellness Center, which was previously administered by the infamous USASA. Notably, the center is currently operating with a bogus certificate of accreditation as a provider of service for victims of trafficking after the valid certificate expired on the 30th of June 2022. To make situation even worse, Honorable Speaker, the center doesn't have a CCTV nor a panic button security system. Meanwhile, the security personnel deployed at the center do not have necessary qualifications such as professional assault response training qualifications. The control room is also not being monitored. Meanwhile, the incidents could take place and go unnoticed. It is also difficult for the center managers to supervise the care workers attached to the center because they are not qualified healthcare professionals. In the wake of this, Honorable Speaker, we are very critical of the safety of the staff members who are working at the unsecured facility, which is housing victims of GBV and human trafficking, including hardened criminals who are still on trial of different types of crimes. The Economic Freedom Fighters strongly condemns the system of non-compliance by the center because one of the caregivers had risked his life and apprehended a child offender who broke windows at the center, owing to the incompetence of the security personnel, lawlessness and mismanagement at the facility. We call upon the Ministry of Social Development to intervene with immediate effect and enforce compliance at the center before the health abuse, before the staff members get endangered, before the victims of gender-based violence who are out there get injured, and before the community at large get endangered. I so move, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. Thank you.
Any response? Any response from the member segment?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Very good morning to members of this August House. I rise to acknowledge and take note of the presentation made by the Honorable Member with regard to the center referred to thereof and the issues that have been raised as concerns that requires the attention of the department going forward. I will follow up on the matter of the speaker and most probably feedback to the committee and subsequently this August House to get feedback with regard to those matters raised. Also, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. Honorable Shota, on the issue pertaining to the legislation, we are not going to respond to the allegations until we receive a successive motion from the Senate. We then respond to the motion. In terms of the rules, yes, I think. Yes, what I'm saying is that we wait until we receive a successive that will support the statement. We are not going to respond to the allegations. According to the statement, we are saying it's the allegations. And we move to the executive statement. Are there any executive statements? Honorable members of the legislature, we rise as a Department of Health to share with you the impact of illegal immigrants on our healthcare system. Honorable Speaker, the Democratic Alliance, the Economic Freedom Fighters, have launched a scathing attack on the person of the NEC following a video that was taken in a hospital at Renabel. The DA has invoked its pretentious love for foreign nationals, merely to seek relevance in the political landscape and impress on matters of international relations. It is this DA, Honorable Speaker, which, to be precise, on the 13th of May 2022, went on an inspection local at Philadelphia Hospital in the Spokane district. They came out with a statement that the staff was better. Resources were stretched because of treating patients from the neighboring Mpumalanga province. In its disparate charade, the DA blames the ballooning medical legal cases on the Mpumalanga patients. Again, it is, Honorable Speaker, the very same DA that is today engaged in the populist politics devoid of any tangible solutions that has been turning away patients from the Eastern Cape from accessing healthcare services in the Western Cape. We need to register upfront that the ANC-led government has and will never be xenophobic. We have responded at that time to say that the Limpopo Department of Health, we will never turn away or demand payment from a patient who is coming from Mpumalanga because they are part of the system and they will be
assessed as per Limpopo citizens do. We are not a federal state, we are a single government led by President Cyril Makwese. This grandstanding coupled with sheer opportunism cannot be expected from an organization that has proven itself to be anti-black in this position. It is also important to register to this August House that the patient in question has already underwent the full treatment, including surgery, and the patient was on the way to be discharged and go back home when the interaction took place. Discussion regarding fee payment to the patient before discharge is a required norm before and after receiving treatment. Those of you who have visited private hospitals, before they touch you, you should produce your medical aid, and then there should have been authorization. Otherwise, you must pay upfront. After receiving treatment, they will still come to you and tell you how much you are owing. There's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, this is hardly a practice in our public facilities, wherein we have wrongly normalized that public health services are for free, regardless of your economic classification and status. This has resulted in the huge patient debt, which we requested Treasury to assist with writing off, because we cannot trace these patients once they exit our facility. We must also share with this August House that the Treasury, in its wisdom, appointed a service provider to help us with debt collection. And the service provider has up to date raised serious concern to say, out of an estimation of 500 million, right, 90% of it, which is 450 million, they can't trace any number that they're given. And this is a service provider that is paid based on the amount of money that they will recover. Now, from the 10% remaining, they were able to trace 5%. They are still hoping for the remaining 5%. Now, we can see that this is a service provider that is spending his or her money to assist the department while he is not going to get anything. And that's why we need honorable members to cultivate the culture of paying for services we receive in the health facilities. Our budget structure also provides for own revenue, which is collected through this intervention and billing immigrants using our facilities and including citizens. The irony of it all is that when you're a South African and you are telling our public hospital, we are able to classify you whether you're an H0, these are SASA patients, H1 below 35,000, below 72,000, just like that, and we will tell you what to pay. This also applies to those who are legal foreign nationals in our country. However, when it comes to undocumented and illegal, they come with false names. They don't have any identification in their pockets. We are not refusing them healthcare services. That is why we are now sitting with the 500 million debt that we can't even, because when we go to Treasury, they want a proof that these people cannot pay. The proof means you must go to the police and get an affidavit. Now, an illegal or undocumented immigrant will never go to the police because, like what happened recently in Khoame this week, they will arrest you and deport you. So the staff at the hospital and many other hospitals that we visit during our Rural Health Matters campaign continue to complain about the sudden rise in illegal immigrants. And their reasoning and their concern, it makes sense because we have come up with this initiative of Rural Health Matters where we are saying, let's go and look for specialists and take them to rural hospitals so that they can clear the surgical backlog. Despite month after month of doing this work, we are worried as a department that there is no progress. And therefore we have now started an investigation working with other government departments to investigate this syndicate that has been alleged to be happening. The moment the foreign illegal immigrants or foreign nationals, when they hear that the Department of Health will be on the Rural Health Matters campaign, they are quick to enter the county. As we speak, the management of Litaba Hospital just sent me a list of undocumented illegal immigrants who has gone there because in the next coming week we will be in Mupali district to clear orthopedics. Honorable members, we are talking about an operation that doesn't cost you less than 200,000. You can go and see. The current implants that we are buying and that we are really providing to this patient is a lot of money that we cannot really afford. After doing orthopedic surgeries, you are expected to issue a wheelchair for temporary for them to bring back. The reason we have a huge backlog on these wheelchairs and crutches is because when they immediately issue, forget about getting it in time. So, honorable members, the primary aim of the Rural Health Matters it was to reduce the surgical backlog. We do this on a shoestring budget, and hence we are saying we are even inviting specialists from outside the province to come and help us with this work. And the criteria for elective surgeries is administered on first come, first served. So there are already illegal immigrants who are in the now, as I speak, 11 in the world. It means they've already taken the position and the spots that could have been taken by a fellow South African or Limpopo citizen who need that, because the reason we are saying this is because that citizen of our province or of our county does not have any other place to go for that service. The service can only be acquired within our public service. They don't have the money, nor do they have any other county to go to. That is why, Honorable Speaker, we are emphasizing that there is no instances where a patient in an emergency situation has not been treated because they are not South African. Because the Constitution provides that no one may refuse emergency medical treatment. We are equally saying there's no patient who presented themselves for an elective or a planned surgery who was returned, even though our Constitution is clear and our National Health Act is clear that they must pay, but they are not paying. It is unfortunate that the influx of immigrants in our facilities is felt by our vulnerable pregnant women in labor ward, who are forced to be progressed while sitting on the chair or lying on the floor because the bed is occupied and we do not have space. It is unfortunate, honorable members, that our mortuaries as we speak today, they are overcrowded due to unclaimed bodies. Many of our illegal foreign nationals, unfortunately, they are not assisting the system, but continue to overburden and at times abuse it. They usually register false names because they don't bring any form of identification when presenting at our facility. They don't have passports or at least use their card from their country of religion. And we are not asking them, stopping from giving them services because of that. When they die, unfortunately, under our care in our facilities, we are unable to trace their next of kin. Today, honorable members, we have 346 corpus funerals, just in sample of forensic cases only. We are not including those who died of natural causes in our facility. The number can shock you. Honorable members must also remember that these corpus funerals are paid by this very same state which is already overburdened. And I'm fighting with councillors every day because in a number of municipalities, councillors have taken a resolution that they are no longer going to be involved in corpus funeral, which therefore leads municipalities like Odendaal, which are in town, to be the ones that we always negotiate with to say assist us with corpus funeral. We recently had a case in the Webber district, Chibizini, where a family member came to present to the management that our son died 7 years ago. We are told might have died in this facility. When they produce the name, there's nothing that's a suit. The reason why they are back is because everybody at home is sick and their ancestors say, go and get his spirit. We can't prove and show them where the spirit of their loved one is. And it's our culture that for the soul to rest in peace, we should appease our ancestors. So when we are raising some of these things, we are equally to assisting even future challenges that we will continue to face. Honorable Speaker, one of the reasons we are pushing for a paperless hospital information this system is to put an end of this abuse. For an individual to enter the country illegally, move from one clinic to another collecting ARVs using false identification, it's criminal. It reflects the selfishness and they don't care about lives of other people. We've never refused any foreign national, legally or not, to access our ARVs or our contraceptives, but our generosity is being abused. Our nurses in Mokwese district are saying how they picked up it when the patient refused injectable because they will inject on a person, but insist on oral contraceptives. They now started to trace, realize that they collect all these contraceptives from one clinic to another. We dispute the content of the DA assertion and submit that the issue of illegal immigrants has indeed substantially impacted negatively on our provision of healthcare. It is important that we are today having this important debate on the impact of illegal immigrants on our healthcare system. The 2017 African National Conference resolution and directive to the National Health Ministry and the Department of National Treasury and other relevant departments to resolve problems relating to undue access by foreigners. Honorable Speaker, the Department of Health has raised this matter in our portfolio committees during SCOPA sittings during Expo. Even started a ministry were engaged by our former minister, but up to so far we have not received what we want. Honorable Speaker, as I'm concluding, we might differ on the question of who, how, why, where, when was this matter raised, but it doesn't mean that we have an elephant in the room which needs to be attended to. We have avoided this matter for too long. We have sugar-coated this issue for long, and unfortunately South African citizens are looking at us for solution. We all agree that the impact is not only felt by our healthcare sphere, but also hospitality, transport, and education. If we do not have this debate, our legal resources are going to fall off the cracks, and it will be South Africans who will be worst affected, especially 91% of people in this province. Public health is for all of us. Its stability and success means the healthcare of South African citizens is safe. Some, especially amongst the professionals in the health, continue to attack our ethical posture on this matter. And unfortunately, some of them are hypocrites. On a daily basis, Honorable Speaker, if I'm concluding, especially that this month of August, when many of us, our medical aid funds have been exhausted, patients are removed from ICU because their medical aid have been depleted. An accident can happen at a doorstep of a private facility. If you don't pay upfront, there must be pre-authorization of a medical aid. Otherwise, they won't touch you. We have our own challenges as a Department of Health, and some of these initiatives are meant to address these challenges, like the surgical backlog campaign. We refuse our Rural Healthcare Matters campaign to be hijacked by illegal foreign nationals and their syndicate. It must benefit the people of South Africa. One opinion maker, Malaika Makata, wrote, issues of access to basic services in Zimbabwe are also important to reflect upon. Access of public health care, for example, is restricted to the Zimbabwean citizen and permanent resident. This is strictly expressed in Section 76 of the country as constitution. In our engagement, Honorable Speaker, we need to be frank if we are to build a better South Africa for all. Thank you very much.
While the oversubscription was trained of undocumented foreign nationals on an ailing health system is a challenge. It is not the biggest challenge in our healthcare system. It is not the biggest healthcare system, and neither is it appropriate to humiliate a vulnerable patient. The MEC must not blame the ANC policy failures from poor border controls that have led to a porous border when people come into this country undocumented on a patient. As a doctor, she must also uphold ethical standards and treatment that is expected of a healthcare worker treating a patient. This House must further note that as a political leader, the MEC should have put her position on the matter forward on platforms that can be discussed provincially, nationally, and with other nations to ensure our healthcare system is not strained. She should not imply that undocumented foreign nationals are the sole cause of the poor healthcare system in Limpopo, and disregard larger, long-established issues like rampant corruption, incompetent senior officials in the department, understaffing, and being under-resourced. And in the same manner, when we have patients that come from other provinces into this province and utilize the healthcare system, the MEC and the crowd that entertained the humiliation of this patient never once addressed that issue. I want to also remind the MEC of the preamble of this constitution in South Africa, something that is sworn on. We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustice of our past, honor those who suffer for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have gone to war and developed our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. Thank you.
I'm told you are right. Department of Health also supports target, which is the illegal immigrants. The reality and the effect of the matter is the healthcare system in the province has collapsed, or is in the verge of collapsing. In the province, we have no healthcare facilities that we can call honorable. Out of 400 and something, we might be having at least 40 or less. It should be noted in this House that the EFF didn't scare an attack against the MEC. However, it's the MEC who is getting attack against the illegal immigrants. As the economic freedom fighters in the province, we still say and we still condemn the behavior that the MEC has displayed in the video that went viral. And that behavior should never be repeated. It should never repeat itself. Honorable MEC must know where to address the policy makers as a legislator or as a policy maker herself. Unless if the department doesn't have boardrooms or the department's boardroom are no longer functional, are dilapidated like many infrastructures that we are seeing in the department. Policy matters should not be addressed at the bedside of the patients. Patients should not be burdened by the constraints of the Department of Health. Let's feel for each other as applicants. Honorable MEC, how many institutions were built in this province since the dawn of the democracy? How many infrastructure did your department innovate or did they refurbish in the province? As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, which legacy are you going to leave, Honorable MEC, for this province? As a take-home message,
I would like you to go home with this question. Which legacy are you going to leave for the people of Limpopo? Thank you.
Honorable members of the legislature, members of the executive president, leaders of the opposition, members of the opposition president here. It is quite interesting, Mr. Speaker, that all members who spoke, in particular from the opposition, are members of the Capital Committee. And most of these particular experiences, they've experienced them by hand. I'll take upon members to remember that when we visited Museum Perspective, we faced the same problem. And one of the members were there, they were frustrated. The same thing that went to school, we faced the same problem. One of the members were there, were frustrated in terms of the medical facilities, particularly medication being taken by illegal foreign immigrants. We're not saying people who are legal in South Africa and those who are illegal should not get medical care, but we are saying, as a committee in particular, that we should make sure that the budget that is budget of the people of Limpopo is utilized this month's maximum help for the people of Limpopo. And I think the other part that is quite frustrating is in relation to the budget constraints that the province are in. It is correct that we are sitting at 14 billion in terms of medical legal. And all those medical legal, it doesn't mean some of them were caused by illegal immigrants. But the fact of the matter is that the department is under this duress because, just like what the Honorable Minister just said now, was saying 11 of our colleagues from outside they were not here in the country. And we must operate them as a problem. We can't change them. A fact of the matter, it might be that what Honorable Minister said was said at the particular point where we didn't expect it to be said. If you remember, even the then Minister of Health, Aaron Mujari, also made the statement when he was the Minister of Health by then. Our health system police and honorable members can be sustainable if we are not going to make it become sustainable. It's important that this particular house should also come to the use of the legislation that will deal with the matter. Because we can't be a province and we can't be a country which is a banana country on its own. People do as they wish. You might have heard the clause that was quoted in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe. It speaks clearly about healthcare facilities only to residents of Zimbabwe. And those of us who goes out of the country, those of us who might have visited other countries, you know when you go there, they'll ask you whether you're going to medical aid. If you get sick in that country, can you afford to pay your own bills? Ourselves, the country, we are becoming a laughing stock. It can't be accepted from honorable members that we allow the little resources that we have to be depleted. The constitution of the country speaks more in terms of that, but we can't allow that. On issues that particular level legacy that Honorable Malaka spoke about, the Honorable MEC will be remembered by the legacy in terms of rural life matters. There is no progress in the entire country where it speaks about rural lives. Where backlog in terms of surgical operations are done, either orthopedic, either any kind of surgical operation is done in a manner that the Limpopo is doing. And that is to the cost of our province, it's a cost to our budget. It is an issue that we should also rise and say there is some positiveness that the department is doing in terms of that. On issues that relates to infrastructure, I don't know whether colleagues are not aware in terms of their own policies that infrastructure development in the entire country is done by the national level. The responsibility of building infrastructure is done at the national level in terms of the powers and functions that were taken by the Department of Health at the national level. On issues of renovation, I think colleagues were there. We went to as far as Parabola, when we went to a hospital there that was renovated in Chile by our own department. There are areas, I don't know if the areas that we know how many clinics were done, how many clinics were renovated, but the fact of the matter is that infrastructure development, including the issue of designing, the issues of hospitals in London, those are the key functions of the national department. It is the same portfolio committee that had an engagement with the portfolio committee at the national level, so that we are able to understand where did the buck stop and what's going on and what is that should be done. We should be honest to ourselves, honorable members, that issues that relate to healthcare in our province, we might not be experts and we might not be perfect, but we go with the same example in the entire country in terms of issues of health, and we commend the MEC for being so brave and making sure that they rise above and raise issues that people didn't want to hear. Thank you very much.
Department of Provincial Treasury, Department of Economic Development, Tourism, Environment and Tourism, Limpopo Gambling Board and Limpopo Tourism Agency, Department of Transport and Community Safety, Department of Public Works and its entity, Group Agency Limpopo, Department of Coxa, and lastly, Department of Social Development. Madam Speaker, the standing annual reports are for the following departments and entities: Office of the Premier, Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Limpopo Economic Development Agency Leader, Gateway Airport Authority Limited, known as CAM. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. The tabled annual report for the financial year 2021-2022 are referred to the relevant portfolio committees and formal for consideration and to be conveyed to the House. Let's proceed. Tabling of the 2021-2022 annual
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I, Chair Bonnie Davis, have the right to table the 2021-22 annual report of the Limpopo Provincial Legislature for consideration by this Honorable House. This report is tabled in terms of Section 6, Subsection 1 of the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2009, which states that, I quote, the executive authority must table the annual report, including the audited financial statement for that financial year, the audit report on those statements, and the annual performance report in Parliament within 1 month after the accounting officer received the audit report. Close quote. I move accordingly. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. The 2021-2022 annual report of the Limpopo Legislature is referred to the Oversight Mechanism Committee for consideration and report back to the House. Let's move to item 7, orders of the day. Consideration and adoption of the following reports of the Provincial Committee on Public Administration. Committee Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I met the study board.
No, you please come on.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I, Martin Desterek, hereby table the report from the Portfolio Committee on the investigation into the allegations of Human Resource and Procurement irregularities at Provincial Treasury for consideration by this oversight. I so move.
Thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support Honorable Committee Chairperson, Honorable Makwese, on the motion that he has taken for this House.
Thank you very much. I still remain Mr. Makwese. I hereby present the irregular precautionary suspension and payment of salary without work at Odendaal Hospital by the Department of Health. I so.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speakers, National Congress, I stand here to support the Honorable Chief People. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I present the report on the investigation into the allegation of procurement irregularities in the Department of Agriculture from Media House. I so present.
Elisa Wanda. Honorable Mahasana.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand here to the presentation by Honorable Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hereby present the report on the investigation into the allegation of irregular recruitment process of the post of External Risk Management Chairperson for the Provincial Treasury. I so move.
Elisa Wanda. Honorable Father.
I rise again to support the Honorable Committee Chairperson, Honorable Makwese, Holdings Direct, and the motion he has tabled in this House. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to present the report on the investigation into the allegations of failure to pay rural relates to education at Makwese Secondary School by the Department of Education. I saw.
Thank you. Any second? Honorable Swan.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Just a second, Honorable Makwese, on the report table. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to present the report from the Portfolio Committee on the investigation into the allegations of the appointment outside the approved structure by the department.
Thank you. Any second? Honorable Sibande. Again.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. I'm still the same manifestor again. I rise to present the report on the investigation into allegation of appointment of outside of the approved structure by the Department of Public Works.
Honorable.
Thanks very much, Honorable Speaker. The essence of the absence of the presence. I am Rogers. I rise to support Honorable Makwese.
Thank you very much. I rise to present the report on the investigation into allegations of nepotism and tribalism in the recruitment process by the Department of Health. I assume.
Any second? Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am also I rise to second Honorable Makwese. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm still here. I hereby rise to present the report on the investigation of allegations of irregular transfer by the Department of Public Works.
Any second?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I surround the amendments to second Honorable Makwese. Thank you, Commissioner.
Honorable Shoga, you must also second. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to present the report on the investigation into allegations of fraudulent and corruption activities at the Department of Agriculture in school communities. I assume.
Any second? Honorable Khoame.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I, Lady Maria Khoame, rise to second the motion as presented by Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I rise to present the report on the investigation into allegations of irregular recruitment process in the Department of Social Development.
Honorable Zedan.
Che alla gola sticala e questa la serie questa procedura c'è questa la scuola la Honorable Makwese.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. This one will be our last report that we present as the Portfolio Committee. It's the report on the investigation into allegations of irregular appointment into the post of the Manager of Finance at Philadelphia Hospital by the Department of Health. I assume.
Any second? Honorable Ndana.
I, President
We shall now refer to the speakers list. The first speaker on the list is Honorable Swan.
Honorable members of the Executive Council, chairpersons of various portfolio committees, honorable members of the Limpopo Legislature, honorable Speaker, please receive warm greetings on behalf of all the women of our province. The commemoration of Women's Month continues unabated even beyond August month. This August House must take a moment and reflect on the major strides that the ANC-led government has made and continues to make in supporting women in all spheres, especially in leadership echelons. It is common knowledge that the ANC remains committed to gender transformation and equal representation of women in leadership. We welcome the latest investigative reports on alleged irregular appointments in various government departments, alleged acts of wrongful or irregular suspensions of employees, the alleged irregular appointments of employees outside the approved organizational structures, alleged nepotism and tribalism in the recruitment process by the Department of Health and the alleged failure by the Department of Education to pay rural incentives to educators of Makwese secondary. We are equally elated that in the majority of cases, all the alleged irregularities were found to be unsubstantiated. We can now find closure in these matters and move on to deal with equally other important issues that confront us. One of these is the extent to which we have moved to ensure that there is gender parity at the top management levels of our departments and government entities. What is the impact of unapproved organizational structures on upward mobility of women? This Women's Month presents us with an ample opportunity to reflect on this matter. We know that several departments, notably those of cooperative governance, human settlements and traditional affairs, agriculture, education and public works, roads and infrastructure, are having a vacancy rate of about 20% on funded posts. The immediate reason for this kind of anomaly is said to be organizational review process which took long. Madam Speaker, this is an important matter that requires our immediate attention. We can infer that lack of progress in filling posts in these departments and other entities is having a negative impact on women's ascension into higher echelons of leadership in the province, especially because the trends seem to be increasing. Honorable Speaker, a 2021 census by the Business Women's Association of South Africa on South African women in leadership show that progress in women's leadership in government workplaces remains steady, if not slow. Women make up more than 60% of the government workforce in South Africa, yet their representation at higher levels remains unacceptably low. We therefore urge the leadership of these departments to prioritize this matter and ensure that we move with speed towards the realization of the goal of 50% women representation across all sectors, starting with our own, the public sector. Honorable Speaker, while most of the allegations that were made against individuals in various departments were found to be unsubstantiated, others were found to hold water. For example, the investigations into alleged fraudulent and corrupt activities of the Department of Agriculture revealed shocking findings. The investigations into alleged irregular, precautionary suspension and payment of salary without work at the Department of Health in FH Odendaal Hospital also revealed weaknesses in our internal controls. The issue of weak internal controls was raised by the Auditor General as one of the factors that led to the regression of federal government entities in the province. Honorable Speaker, we take this opportunity to call upon the affected departments to learn from the Office of the Premier, the Provincial Treasury, the Department of Transport and Community Safety, and invest themselves with the culture of accounting disciplines prevalent in these institutions to drive improved adherence to prescriptions and legislation when conducting their businesses, including recruitment and procurement. As we conclude, Honorable Speaker, the 2019 ANC election manifesto enjoined us to fight a corrupted and maladministration, promote a culture of integrity, and hold people accountable. All these measures will help the government regain public trust. We call upon our people to soldier with us in our journey to build a capable, developmental, transparent, and responsive state. And I move upon to the Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Son. Honorable Bishop.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Greetings to the ever-absent Premier of Limpopo and the ABC's presence here, all members here. Honorable Speaker, the role and corruption in the administration of Premier Makwese is disgraceful. It is a role that has now become a norm in this administration to steal and get away with it. They break every law in the book in as far as government is concerned. Maladministration, nepotism, and corruption in the filling of posts of manager in the security care center reign supreme in the Department of Social Development. This has been with easy and without any fear of consequence management because it does not exist in any way. In the Department of Agriculture, preferential treatment was given to military, industrial, as a service provider to the treatment of others. This nepotism and corruption is carefully crafted in order that officials who commit this crime get a card from the provincial treatment jail. Nepotism practice in government denies competent and skillful candidates with experience and expertise to serve the people of the province. It does not come as a surprise that the provincial government performs so poorly in terms of service delivery and its financials. This gatekeeping to the exclusion of deserving candidates in the expense of unskilled, incompetent, and lazy data deployment comrades must be exposed and must come to an end. This is what they normally call jubilant throwing. Politicians and officials allocate tenders to their families, members, and friends in order to get cards or share. They have mastered the art of stealing to an extent that it is difficult to notice corruption when it happens. In the Department of Health, what attendants at Limpopo Clinic were appointed ahead of other candidates who had relevant experience than the appointed candidate. This is the department of the loudest ABC in the province, who claimed and discussed to be striving for good governance where she is not. The media attention-seeking ABC does nothing but to use every opportunity to get a limelight for self-glory. Furthermore, the post of finance manager in Philadelphia Hospital was not in line with the district, and this was done under the watchful eye of the same ABC. The truth of the matter is that there is no consequence management in the administration of Khoame Media, and we have said it many times in this house. We are in a banana province where people do as they please. The Premier and his executive are not improving at all. They are not teachable, but we cannot give up on them. We need to continue exposing their scams and shenanigans until the people of Limpopo see them for who they are. Perhaps we need to give you this word of advice. You do not only listen to advice of those you agree with. It is advisable and wise to listen to those who differ with you. The mistake the ANC do, not only in this house but in the National Assembly as well, is that they took a misguided position that they will not take advice from opposing parties. Take advice from even those you differ with ideologically. They will build you. The ANC is on the path of self-destruction, and no one will stop them in their determination to commit suicide. At first they were dying a slow death, but now they are moving with speed towards the ultimate deadline for the Human Resource movement on the continent. No one will rescue the ANC. They also can't save themselves from them. They cannot save them from themselves. The Legacy leadership style pressed by Premier is the root cause of the bad governance in the province. The plane is about to crash with the passengers inside, and the pilot is not making any efforts to rescue them. Save the situation because he is asleep. Unlike the biblical story, the disciples woke Jesus up when the boat was about to sink, and he saved the administration. In the course of his sleep, his own comrades know that what he's doing is wrong and are deliberately setting him up for a failure. Wake up, the sleeper, the plane is crashing. I thank you.
Two by Treasury, two by Agriculture, one by Education, two by Public Works, and one by Social Development. The concerns raised by employees and the public can be broken down into HR-related matters or failure to comply with recruitment processes, nepotism, tribalism, the processes around transferring of staff, performance management of employees, failure to pay incentives, allegations of fraud and corruption, irregular tender approvals, and finally, procurement irregularities. Honourable Speaker, the concerns around some of these reports and investigations are that some go back a while. It is also commendable to note that the Portfolio Committee on Public Administration has recommended that 4 of the 12 reports or investigations be closed as they are unsubstantiated. In addition, the committee found that with regard to the issue around the irregular precautionary suspension and payment of salary at FH Odendaal Hospital, that these must follow the circulars issued by the Public Service Commissioner. The committee further recommends that Treasury proceed with the recruitment process in respect of the post of the External Independent Risk Management Committee Chairperson. With regard to the Mukula filling station, the committee recommended that the shortlisting panel be instituted with corrective action for placing a candidate above other more qualified candidates who had the relevant experience instead of Mr. Kotita. Honourable Speaker, in the Department of Public Works, the case regarding the incumbent, the committee recommend that they be transferred to the post of accounting clerk, which is equivalent to the post recognized in terms of the 2010 approved structure. In addition to this, the Department of Public Works must institute corrective measures and consequence management against the Director of Human Resource Management for failure in exercising due diligence prior to the post being vacant and after the post became vacant. The Portfolio Committee on the Public Administration further recommends that all departments embark on an exercise to clean up the Basel database and to conduct an organizational structure analysis. The Department of Social Development recommends that the Child and Youth Care Supervisor appointment be nullified due to the process being tainted. In this instance, the committee also concluded that the HOD institute disciplinary action against the shortlisting and interviewing panels for gross failure and negligence in performing their functions. In addition, the applicant had misrepresented a CV when applying for the post, and the HOD should institute disciplinary action against the individual. In conclusion with this report, the department must furnish the portfolio committee after initiating an investigation as to what happened to Mr. Passa's application, which was misplaced. Honourable Speaker, the report of the Department of Agriculture in Sekhukhune recommended that Metric Industrial repay the overpayment of 1,204 rand. It is also concerned that the tender processes have been flawed and in future ensure that there is more than one service provider appointed. Mr. Hopper must make disciplinary inquiry for giving preferential treatment to Metric Industrial as a service provider, over the detriment of other service providers. In addition, no purchase order was provided and goods were received. In conclusion, Honourable Speaker, it is also agreed that a criminal case be opened against Mr. Matabula, the former district director, as well as Mr. Popa for the alleged criminal conduct in respect of the seats tender. All these outcomes of the recommendations and report backs were to be submitted to the Portfolio Committee of Public Administration by the 30th of June 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And greetings once again to the honourable members. Honourable Speaker, we are not on the plane, we are not going to crash. We will crash alone, we are not going to crash. Whenever you say we will crash alone. You know you will crash alone. Thank you very much.
Yeah?
Thank you
You can't even see that you're crashing. You're saying that.
Thank you very much, honourable members. No, we are not crashing.
Part of crashing. It's crashing this way.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the input by all other honourable members, Honourable Siono. I think you were indeed debating what we are supposed to debate, which is the reports. Honourable Speaker, the Public Service Commission is, in terms of Section 196 of the Constitution, and whatever reports that we are debating here in this August House, we are debating reports that comes from the Public Service Commission that conducted investigation. Section 196 of the Constitution says that the Public Service Commission must be established and that the Commission is independent and must be impartial, must exercise its powers and perform its function without fear, favor, or prejudice in the interest of the maintenance of effective and efficient public administration and the high standard of professional ethics in the public service. The Commission must be regulated by the national legislation. And lastly, no person or organ of state may interfere in the functioning of the Commission. So whatever report that we present here on behalf of the committee, we expect that the executive go and implement those recommendations as put forward by the Public Service Commission and the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration. The ANC has, over the period, including during the 2019 national and provincial elections, through its election manifesto, because we are here we are the one that the people of this province accepted that the manifesto must go and be implemented. Committed itself to strengthening governance, intervention in both public entities, security agencies, and to ensure transparency, accountability, consequence management, responsiveness to the needs and concerns of the people. To realize these goals, honorable members, the ANC-led government established various agencies, amongst them Public Service Commission, whose reports we are considering today. This commission is mandated to ensure that personnel procedures relating to recruitment, transfer, promotion, dismissal comply with values and principles enshrined in our various legislation dealing with similar matters. As members are aware, the Commission received complaints regarding alleged irregularities in recruitment, appointment of staff in the Department of Health, the Social Development, Public Works, Roads and Infrastructure, as well as Provincial Treasury. There are also allegations of fraudulent and corrupt procurement activities at the Department of Agriculture. We hasten to thank all members of the public who have anonymously reported the alleged irregularities. It's quite important that members of the public who blow the whistle are allowed to blow the whistle, so that whatever irregularities that is happening in various departments, we are able to look into and make those who are supposed to account. This is in line with the ANC's resolve to subsequently pronounce in 2019 election manifesto to crack down on corruption, promote the culture of integrity with all stakeholders. The provincial government has made progress in broadening vetting and financial monitoring to curb corruption by establishing the much-awaited integrity, security, and vetting directorate. Tasked, amongst others, to manage the implementation of whistleblowing mechanism, because without whistleblowers, we will never be able to establish the corrupt activities in various departments. We want those whistleblowers to be protected so that they are able to assist us to ensure accountability. Working with other institutions like Public Service Commission, the Directorate will ensure transparency, fairness in the recruitment processes in all state institutions. As the Portfolio Committee, we welcome the investigation reports and believe that the implementation of consequence management and the recommendation will go a long way in buttressing similar occurrences in future. The investigation reports, as pronounced by Honorable Maharaji, went a long way to indicate all the recommendations that are there. We'll ensure that all these recommendations must ensure that actions after allegations were substantiated are taken. There are some areas where the allegations are unsubstantiated, and in those areas, those cases are closed. Of course, these reports were tabled to the committee, and the previous time frame for bringing back the reports had already lapsed. So we expect that in each and every quarter, that will be meeting with the Portfolio Committee and the Office of the Premier will request that we ensure that all these reports and recommendations as put forward are then implemented. Check the progress in the implementation of these reports. The only way to restore integrity and public trust in the ANC-led government and its institution is to move with speed to implement consequence management on those who have abused position of authority, to recover monies wrongly paid, and to cancel contracts that were irregularly awarded. As the ANC 2019 election manifesto directs, We must hold people accountable. Those who do public resources or abuse their position of authority must then face the full mighty of the law. All the recommendations as put forward by Honorable Maharaj, I don't want to repeat them. We are putting them to this House and to the executive for them to go and implement them. We'll monitor the implementation of all these reports quarterly. I think as I conclude, Honorable Minister of Health, besides what you raised, we must then look at what is the root cause of that migration, because it's very important, it affects our people. One of the root causes that we did not discuss is sanctions that have been meted to the Republic of Zimbabwe. Yes. We must debate it because that sanctions affects the whole SADC region. And if those sanctions are not there, if there is Zimbabwe, that sanctions is also affecting us in South Africa. And I think it's one area that we need to look forward and debate as this House to see what we can do. As I conclude, I therefore move that all these reports are adopted by this August House. I
Don't be serious,
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the executive has noted on behalf of the Premier, and we welcome and note the comments that are made by honorable members, starting with you, honorable Chairperson, as the committee that oversees the work that the government and the executive does. We also want to appreciate the work that was done by the Public Service Commissions on these cases. And of course, as you have rightfully said, Honorable Maharaj has summarized all those cases, and indeed he was focusing on the brief and the debate that was here, unlike some of the honorable members who came and have a different script from what they have been, or the work that this committee is supposed to do and this August House. Honorable members, we don't oppose for the sake of opposing. It is important that when the committees have done their work, they are able to come here and present to us and as the executive to make sure that we implement. We do not want to waste your time. The Office of the Premier is noted, and the recommendations as stipulated will be implemented, and on a quarterly basis, the committee will be briefed on the progress that we would have made in terms of making sure that we implement all the recommendations without fail. The ANC-led government is in charge and will continue to lead because the people of this province and this country have confidence in us. Thank you.
of the Standing Committee of Quality of Life and Status of Women, Youth and People Living with Disability on 2021 Parliament of People Living with Disability be adopted as the report of this House, and I so move on.
Thank you. Any supplement? Honorable Abdi? Thanks very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the proposal as submitted by Honorable Abdi. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable. We shall now move to discuss this debate. Honorable Honorable Speaker, Mayor Honorable Premier in absentia, Chief Whip of the Majority Party, Honorable MCs that are present today, Chairperson of the different control committees, members of the Provincial Legislature, officials from the different departments, all protocol observed. Honorable Speaker, we are gathered here today a month after Banyana made us proud by bringing a trophy home from winning the WAFCON 2022 tournaments, where the 2 winning goals were scored by 2 girls from Limpopo. As this was not enough, 2 weeks back we woke up to receive good news that one of our own girls in Limpopo by the name of Ndari, who came from Gabaza village in Kawa area, under Greater Saline Municipality, was crowned Miss South Africa 2022. This makes me, Honorable Speaker, to support Master KG in one of his songs when he said, I open cook, Eunyaga Udaudifa, Namela Udelipo, Indeed, Limpopo is the best province to be. Honorable Speaker, I guess we all know and understand that disability is one of the most important issues in the contemporary society because of stigmatization of people with disabilities, which contribute to the formation of biases and prejudices which put them into the disadvantageous position compared to people who do not have problems of disability. Nevertheless, today the problem of people with disabilities and their discrimination exists because many biases and prejudices are restricted. In this regard, education is particularly vulnerable to the people, to the problem of the integration of students with disability into the learning process, since the modern education system attempts to provide equal opportunities for all students, eliminating the discrimination of students with disability. As procedural, in carrying out its constitutional mandate, the Standing Committee on Quality of Life and Status of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities succeeded in conducting 2021 Parliament of People with Disability. Madam Speaker, many people are surprised to learn how much of the population lives with disability. According to Statistics South Africa 2022, the national disability prevalence rate is 7.5 in South Africa. Disability is more prevalent among females compared to males, with 8.3% and 6.5% respectively. Persons with disabilities increase with age. More than half, which is 3.2% of persons aged 85 plus, reported having disability. The prevalence of a specific type of disability shows that 11% of persons are aged 5 years and older had seeing difficulties, 4.2% had cognitive difficulties with means remembering and concentration, 3.6% had hearing difficulties, and about 2% had communication, self-care, and walking difficulties. Households headed by persons with disability were found to have less access
to basic services compared to households headed by persons without disability. There were also disparities in terms of access to assistive devices across population groups and geography. People with disability can be at higher risk of injury and abuse. It is important for parents and other family members to teach their loved ones how to stay safe and what to do if they feel threatened or have been hurt in any way. Disability and employment. Madam Speaker, empowerment has meant a lot to disabled people by enabling them to take greater control of their lives, informing policies and setting policies, and helping us recognize what should be obvious. The individuals must be valued for who they are and not despite an impairment. As a result, governments and business need to ensure that they are prepared to fully accommodate people with disabilities, in particular as digital technologies become ever more important to society. Organizations must ensure that their websites, apps, and all digital properties are accessible. Madam Speaker, as the member of the committee responsible for the Standing Committee on Quality of Life and Status of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, having scrutinized the 2021 Parliament for People with Disabilities, we recommend that hence this period is most important in ensuring progress and quality of services and paying fiscal dumping to special cases such as availability of assistive devices, education, access to health, and employment. While much progress is still necessary in societal attitude towards issues relating to impairment, advances in empowerment of disabled persons have been changing our field fundamentally for the better. As the committee, we believe that further progress will continue to improve the quality and effectiveness of diagnostic and therapeutic relationship, meaningful outcomes, and organization of society as a whole. Disability income and poverty. Those who have a disability, there's a higher probability that you will live in poverty. And if you live in poverty, there is an increased likelihood that you may have or at some point in your life have disability. This is one of the primary reasons to focus on low and middle income as a country. While not all people with disability are poor, it is increasingly recognized that disability is an important issue in poverty reduction and poverty alleviation efforts. A small but growing body of evidence is provided specific information about the association between disability and poverty, especially multidimensional poverty. Disability and education. Disabilities can be so harsh that too many families, their own disabled relatives in Europe, so please take time to listen and spend time with a disabled person. Understand them, for just like you and me, we all need friends. Persons with severe disabilities experience difficulty in accessing education and employment opportunities. However, we need to ensure that outreach programs on persons with disabilities rights should be intensified, especially in the rural communities. Members, let our current team in South Africa educate us something different about disability. Few months back, the entire country were celebrating the victory of one of our own, South African Khoame schools, gold and race world record at Tokyo Paralympics. The man who was born with a condition known as Odendaal spent a life portion of his young life in a wheelchair. At the age of 10 also, the year of the London Paralympics, things changed. The decision was made to amputate both Nando's legs through the knees when the London Paralympics were on TV, and the other South African amputees were stars on the big stage. He was learning how to walk. 2 weeks later, he could run on his feet. He was fitted with his first set of prosthetic cheetah-based in September 2012. And all thanks to an incredible non-profit organization, jumping his end. He hasn't looked back. Let Makwese inspire more than 3 children to dream big and go for their goals, despite the challenge. By being a good example of what is possible with access to prosthetics, mainstream education, and sport, we can ensure all stakeholders that disability structures have been created especially to ensure that there is clear communication between spheres of governance. School infrastructure. Just for noting, the Premier should keep it safe that the committee is not satisfied with the state of some schools for people with special needs, more so with regard to the availability of therapists
and assistive devices. We urge the Premier and the First Lady to adopt Same Special Schools in particular as a special project where resources should be pumped in. Great work is happening there, but a special visit by the Premier and the First Lady will do much in elevating the needs and the school and coping business and civil society to participate. We appreciate the infrastructure at Limpopo Special School and the ongoing work at Sukurai. Let us not stay. In conclusion, we wish to reiterate our position that let this administration accelerate this transition from social welfare to social development as we embrace the time of the most vulnerable in our society. Believing that any state government will continue to remain firm in providing opportunities for persons with disabilities to develop skills and earn a income with products that they make in workshops to supplement their disability finance. To this end, let us continue to make every endeavor to ensure that those with disabilities are given priority and fair treatment. All compatriots and citizens with disabilities will be eventually be fully mainstreamed and inclusive system where they can play their role in society alongside with everyone else. Thank you very much for listening. There are a lot of disabled people who are being left behind on matters of empowerment and development. This unfortunate situation makes people living with disability to be vulnerable, marginalized, and disempowered community. Honorable Speaker, there is a need for more awareness on how to coexist with persons living with disability, and such an opportunity will level the playing field. This type of awareness should be limited to transversal department, but must be inclusive of our communities. Honorable Speaker, with a slower speed in solving issues of creating an inclusive environment, it will take many years to remove barriers that create inaccessible conditions to our society. We should be ashamed that 27 years into democracy, we convened a parliament to deal with overcoming deeply noted societal practices such as stigma, prejudice, and discrimination that treat people living with disability as secondary, instead of tracking progress on how living with disability were empowered. Equally, the theme of Parliament removing barriers to create an inclusive and accessible society for all came as no surprise, as even the department parastatals are unable to meet the targets. Honorable Speaker, the department cannot be enjoying the ceremonial monitoring and overseeing implementation of transversal program by executing departments without clear recourse in case of failure to comply with guiding prescriptions. Those who seek to delay or oppose empowerment of and integrity of persons with disability into economic and must be punished. All government employees must undergo a sign language training with SMS members being, all government employees must undergo a sign language training with SMS members paying for themselves. As the EFF, we further submit that each department must have a sign language practitioner or interpreter to enable its flow of service delivered. How many institutions are supported or funded by the government? Does the department have provision for assistance devices for those in villages or from disadvantaged households? What intervention strategies does the department have to ensure that SASSA grants to those beneficiaries with mental health and other forms of disabilities are not disrupted or stopped whilst not compromising the verification standards? The EFF demands that there be a solid deadline on ensuring that all public buildings are user-friendly for people living with disabilities. Honorable Speaker, we need more awareness activities in communities and institutions to ensure that no one is left behind and there must be holistic inclusive. The punishment of those who fail to achieve targets on employment and empowerment of people with disabilities in both public and private sectors should be implemented. Given the economic situation in the country, we call upon the transport such as GNT, and others to give fair discounts to persons living with disabilities, aged persons, unemployed youth, and school-going youth. There is a need for paradigm shift to address communication barriers preventing some persons with disability, active participation in education, access to health and employment. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the AFF said the government must ensure that by the beginning of 2023 academic calendar, there must be an autism school open for public. Intergovernmental relations on matters of ensuring the developmental goals on persons living with disabilities should be intensified. I so thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Chief Whip of the Majority Party, ABC is present here. Honorable members of the Provincial Legislature, all protocol officers. Good afternoon. Madam Speaker, the Office of the Premier is the administrative and political principal of the provincial administration. To that extent, we expect the office to set an example for all the other departments to follow. This special program special program in the Office of the Premier should therefore not be found waiting in implementing its own set target. As procedural, the Standing Committee of Quality of Life and Status of Women, Youth and People Living with Disability interacted with the Office of the Premier on special programs on the 2021-2022 first and second quarter report. The meeting was scheduled to execute the institutional mandate tabled in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa 1996 Act 108 of 1996 as amended provided in Section 114. On meeting the 2% employment targets for people with disability. Madam Speaker, we still have not reached the target that the Premier Mathabata has committed to meet the employment of people living with disability at senior management level as promised during the International Disability Day held at Cerebral Duncan campus in Namakale 7 years back, December 9, 2015. Indeed, this talked more to will than availability of goods. It is all well to have disability vocal programs, but if these programs are not brought to fruition, it all becomes pointless. We commend the fact that all the departments, with the exception of the Department of Health, have dedicated disability vocal persons to assist in the implementation of disability programs. We commend the department that have met the disability equity target but remain concerned by major departments like health, education, and culture, which still fail to meet equity target. Madam Speaker, it seems that there is no will at all in this department to meet this target, and there is an even lesser, and it is even lesser effort by the Office of the Premier to enforce compliance. Departments which fail to implement have been reported to cite budget strain on compensation of employees as the main reason why they fail to meet said target. This cannot really be an acceptable reason. To claim that meeting disability target will bear negatively on the provincial press cannot be acceptable. As part of the intervention strategy, the Office of the Premier, together with sector departments, have developed a revised structure which includes the post of disability focal points to address this particular challenge. We believe that moving forward, this will no longer an issue. The Office of the Premier reports that they have monitored government procurement for the empowerment of people with disability. However, non-compliance to the 7% procurement target set aside for people with disability is still a challenge. The Office of the Premier capacitated line function department on strategies to empower disabled people as an intervention strategy. We cannot be seen to be complacent in such important matters as regard disability and simply allow departments. On assistive device response. Madam Speaker, it has been reported that the Office of the Premier lacks information on the assistive device, and this backlog poses as a challenge emanating from previous financial year of 2020-2021 fourth quarter. Honorable members, it has been reported that assistive device program was monitored during the period under review, and the backlog seems to be an ongoing thing for the Department of Health due to budgetary constraints. Taking note that the use of assistive device is safe and contributes to health care workers in service. By identifying and improving on this backlog will play a vital role in healthcare facilities and prevent occupational injuries. The assistive devices with the backlog were recorded for working aids and crashes and spectacles with a total of 4,252 and 2,340 required respectively. On the rights of women in all the departments. The office has reported that only the Department of Transport and Community Safety has complied with the 50% employment equity status. The committee raised a displeasure in the continuous non-compliance by departments. However, the Office of the Premier has come up with a prioritization of funded posts to comply with employment equity plan of sector department as an intervention strategy. Madam Speaker, during the third quarter of the previous financial year, several measures were kept in place to improve the overall provincial social equity employment compliance, which includes the development and implementation of equity employment plans by the department. Equal opportunities of growth and promotion that completely incorporate policy of any discriminatory bias, providing an inclusive and meritocratic platform of progress for all require a larger shift in mindset of employees. On employment equity, it was also reported that as part of gender mainstreaming in sector departments, all the departments have appointed gender focal person whose responsibilities is to popularize and mainstream gender programs and projects. The employment of women is not a favor, but is essential to our equity project. It does not make sense to have programs on women empowerment when these are not met by actual representatives of women in workplace. Madam Speaker, in one of his speeches, President Khoame stated that no government in South Africa could ever claim to represent the will of the people if it failed to address the central task of emancipation of women in all its elements, and that includes the government we are privileged to lead. The presence of women in the workplace, also occupying senior roles, goes a long way in advancing the gains of our revolution. The presence of women in leadership positions goes a long way in affirming the rightful space that women should occupy in society. We therefore encourage the office to ensure compliance by departments. On provision of sanitary pads, the Limpopo sanitary dignity programs. The Office of the Premier has reported that the Department of Education, as the implementing agency for the Limpopo sanitary dignity programs, has undertaken to provide sanitary dignity pads to all children in quintile 1 to 3, and an implementation plan is readily available. Madam Speaker, it is reported that disposal of sanitary towel was a challenge, and that the subcommittee was working to address the matter. The committee noted the report that implementation of the sanitary dignity program is monitored monthly and reported quarterly by the Department of Education. While it is all well to have an implementation plan, we need to see this program running in schools already. The dignity of girls' children should be protected at all times. We therefore urge the office to hasten in ensuring that this program is duly implemented. On gender-based violence, much of our effort as South Africans has to be focused on response. However, our response effort needs to be supported and implemented by prevention programming and policy development. By addressing the underlying interlinked causes of GBV, we can work together towards preventing it from happening in the first place. While Limpopo has high level of GBV, we must also lead in the field of prevention interventions in low and middle income regions. We need to identify models which work to respond to and prevent violence, and we can work on scaling those up to reach more people. At the same time, as a society, we can work together to find new ways to address GBV, building the current evidence base and responding to this national crisis. Madam Speaker, we must be worried about what has happened in our side as a society. We need to integrate values of Ubuntu with our democratic values. These values must be reflected into our action. We need a discourse on the destruction of our cultural norms. Freedom will be meaningless if women and children cannot walk freely in our streets. And freedom will be meaningless if our children cannot play freely in their neighborhood. And freedom will be meaningless if the home is no longer a safe place to be for women women in children. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, we have highlighted what ought to be done. We believe that the Premier as the principal will ensure that implementation takes place, having considered the first, second, and third quarter report on special programs. The committee recommended the House to adopt the report and that the Office of the Premier should comply with the recommendations of committee as indicated. Speaker, I therefore move on behalf of the committee that this report be adopted as the report of this House. I thank you. I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, we want to appreciate the inputs and debates by honorable members. Our special thanks goes to the chair of this particular committee that deals with the most vulnerable within our societies. Those people with disabilities who continue to be discriminated and stigmatized. And we really appreciate the fact that the committee has been very clear on what we are supposed to be doing, especially as the executive. And on behalf of the Premier of this province, we want to reassure honorable members that indeed those departments that have got the responsibility, whether it's the Department of Health that must make sure that assistive devices, when we listen, are supposed to be there. The current backlogs of, for instance, your spectacles have currently received a major boost when one of the church with an NGO, LDS, has committed and has already started donating our equipment that can, the lens cutting machine, because previously we had to outsource and due to the resource constraints, we have not been able to reach to those. So it is quite a positive move that will assist. Of course, although we will still bring back the other challenge that we need to fast track this issue of e-health and e-medicine, because once people know that there are these assistive devices, they move from one place to another collecting such spectacles. The issues of walking aids and wheelchairs, we need to really look into that. We appreciate the committee. And we are also noting the dire need of a school that looks after the children with autism. And want to believe that our Department of Education will also work together with social development and health to make sure that as a province, at least we have one of those schools. Those are the issues that we will continue, honorable members, as executive, to brief this House. Honorable members, we agree fully with you that gender-based violence and femicide has become the major pandemic that we are supposed to deal with, all of us together. It cannot be left for government alone or for one or two departments in government, but it has become a societal challenge which it takes all of us to say, when we are raising our girl child, are we raising them with the boy child, and raise the boy child to understand their responsibility when it comes to their approach and how they will relate in terms of the other gender that is opposite to them. So, honorable members, all we can say is that we really appreciate all the inputs in this debate. No one was outside the scope. The script was clear, and we want to appreciate that. And we say, as the executive, all what we need to do is to implement what your recommendations are and continue to update you and make sure that we indeed meet the targets. Rome was not built in one day. but as we can reassure you that we are on the right path towards making sure that the people of this province, especially the people with disability, they told me last week that they are not people living with disability. They are people with disability. So I must share with this August now, let's no longer call them people living with disability. We must call them people with disability. They are saying we can get employment, we don't need to be dependent on SASSA grant. When you see us with disability, that doesn't mean we can't work, we can't produce, we can't be like you. We are like you, we just have disabilities. Thank you very much.
Motion for the ratification of appointment of special delegates who attended NCOP Kenya. Honorable Chief of the Legislature.
Honorable Speaker, I also rule 226 of the standing rules and orders of the House. Right together with Section 61, subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, provide for the designation and appointment of special delegates when the House is constituted. In line with this provision, the following honorable members were appointed to attend the following virtual LCOP plenaries when the House was constituted. 3rd August 2022, questions to cluster governance, cooperative governance, and traditional affairs and public service and administration. Honorable M.J. Abiri and S. Mnyamani, T.P. Matiri. 4th August 2022, questions to cluster governance, Minister in the Presidency, Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities and Minister in the Presidency. Honorable M.D. Masemola and Mukaba, CBD Salami, Esther Muchari. 10 August 2022, debate on the day of the theme gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Honorable M.D. Mukaba, CBD Salami, Esther Muchari. 18 August 2022, questions to the Deputy President, SC Sikwati, Aramulapo, AJB, Low, and Odendaal. 23 August 2022, questions to Cluster 1A, Peace and Security, Police, Justice and Correctional Services. Honorable P.S. Michelle, CBD Salani, and Mohammed, NG Salani Gama. 25 August 2022, debate on socio-economic impact and seat of the production and trading counterfeit products. Honorable Sam Arsono, CBD Salani, T.P. Matiri. I hereby move that this August House will vote to ratify the appointment of the above mentioned special delegates in line with the above mentioned provisions. I move according to the Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chief. Any support? Honorable Salami.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Perhaps Pamela of the Makwese Party of National Congress. I then need to second the Honorable Chief Whip on the ratification of them to attended the Special National Council of Governments, which is in line with the prescribed legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Announcement.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Announcement is simple. I think the governor will put through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The House is adjourned to Thursday, 1st September 2022 at
Honorable the Speaker.
Le